Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitamscha Om Ajnana Timarandasya Yanachana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gorva Bhistam Supurakam Guraganara Sesha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govindabhidam Ujwalam Varatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Vande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanam Suchandabaranam Palaka Chelanjitam Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubhanam Mareka Sharanam Nyashishvara Sridharam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Nama. We're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami with translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is Madhya-lila chapter 8, talks between the Lord and Srila Ramananda Raya, verse 195. Radhaya bhavatascha chitta jatuni svedar vilapya kramad yunjan atri nikunja kunjarapate nirduta beda brahmam chitraya swayam anvaran jayad iha brahmanda harmyodare Bhuyobir Navaraga Hingula Barai Shringara Karukriti. O my Lord, you live in the forest of Govardhan Hill, and like the king of elephants, you are expert in the art of conjugal love. O Master of the universe, your heart and Srimati Radharani's heart are just like shellac and are now melted in your spiritual perspiration. Therefore, one can no longer distinguish between you and Srimati Radharani. Now you have mixed your newly invoked affection, which is like vermilion, with your melted hearts, and for the benefit of the whole world, you have painted both your hearts red within this great palace of the universe. This verse quoted by Ramananda Raya is from Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani. Prabhu ko he sadhya bastur avadi e hoy tomara prasadi iha janilun nisjoy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirmed these verses recited by Sri Ramananda Raya, saying, "This is the limit of the goal of human life. Only by your mercy have I come to understand it conclusively. Sadhya bastu sadhana binu keho nahi pai kripa kori kaharai Pavara Upai." The goal of life cannot be achieved unless one practices the process. Now, being merciful upon me, please explain that means by which this goal can be attained. Raya kohe jay kaho se kohibani kiko hiye balomanda kichwina jani. Sri Ramananda Raya replied, "I do not know what I am saying, but you have made me speak. What I have spoken, be it good or bad, I am simply repeating that message." Tribhuvana madhye aiche hoy kondira je tomara maya nate hoy beka stira. Within these three worlds, who is so undisturbed that he can remain steady as you manipulate your different energies? Moramuke bhakta tumi how shrota Adyanta Rahasya Shuna Sarunerakata. Actually, you are speaking through my mouth, and at the same time you are listening. This is very mysterious. Anyway, kindly hear the explanation of the process by which the goal can be attained. Radha Krishna Lilati Radha Krishna Lila E Ati Gudatar Dasha Batsal Jati Babe Nahoy Gochar. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are very confidential. They cannot be understood through the mellows of servitude, fraternity, or parental affection. They can't be understood by Dasharas or Vatsalyaras, or also by Sakyaras. They can only be understood by Madhurya Ras. Sabe ek Saki Ganer Ihan Adhikar Saki Hoite Hoi E Lilara Bistar. Actually, only the gopis have the right to appreciate these pastimes, and only from them can these pastimes be expanded. Saki bine lila pushta nahi hoy, Saki lila vistaria, Saki ashvadoy. Without the gopis, these pastimes between Radha and Krishna cannot be nourished. Only by their cooperation are such pastimes broadcast. It is their business to taste this rasa. Saki bine lilaya anyarana higati, Saki babe jaitare koryanugati, Radha Krishna kunja seba, sadya se pai, se sadya paiteyar nahika upai. Without the help of the gopis, one cannot enter into these pastimes. Only one who worships the Lord in the ecstasy of the gopis, following in their footsteps, can engage in the service of Shri Radha Krishna in the bushes of Vrindavan. Only then can one understand the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. There is no other procedure for understanding. So these topics are very elevated. Let's talk about only understanding the affairs of Radha and Krishna through the worship which is engaged in by the gopis. Can it be understood? Now this is for those who are very advanced in Krishna consciousness. This should not be imitated or taken very as something that one can just engage in terms of mental activities. This is a stage of advancement that is being described after so many other processes have been, or after so much discussion has gone on between Ramananda Raya and Mahaprabhu. Things didn't start out at this level, but Mahaprabhu is inquiring, eho baya age kohoar. First, that is external, and then Mahaprabhu accepting and saying, go on, go on. Vibhurapi sukha rupa sva prakashopi bhava shanam api nahi Radha Krishnayor yarite sva pravahati rasa pushtim chid vibhutir ivesha shrayati na paramasam ka sakinam rasagya. The pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna are self-effulgent. Their happiness personified, unlimited and all-powerful. Even so, the spiritual humors of such pastimes are never complete without the gopis, the Lord's personal friends. The Lord is never complete without his spiritual potencies. Therefore, unless one takes shelter of the gopis, one cannot enter into the company of Radha and Krishna. Who can be interested in their spiritual pastimes without taking their shelter? Sakir swabhaveg akatya katan Krishna saha nijalilai nahi sakir man. There is an inexplicable fact about the natural inclinations of the gopis. The gopis never want to enjoy themselves with Krishna personally. Krishna saha radhikara lila jay karai, nija sukha hoite tate koti sukha pai. The happiness of the gopis increases 10 million times when they serve to engage Shri Radha and Krishna in their transcendental pastimes. Radhara Swarupa Krishna Prema Kopalata Sakiguna Hoitar Pailava Pushpapata. By nature, Srimati Radharani is just like a creeper of love of Godhead, and the gopis are the twigs, flowers, and leaves of that creeper. Krishna Lilamrita Jadi Latake Sinjai Nija Sukha Hoite Palavadyara Koti Sukha Hoi. When the nectar of Krishna's pastimes is sprinkled on that creeper, the happiness derived by the twigs, flowers, and leaves is 10 million times greater than that derived by the creeper itself. Sakya Shri Radhikaya. Okay. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states, Srimati Radharani is a creeper of love of Godhead, and the gopis are exactly like twigs, flowers, and leaves. When water is sprinkled on the creeper, the twigs, flowers, and leaves indirectly receive the benefits of the creeper itself. But water sprinkled directly on the twigs, leaves, and flowers is not as effective as water sprinkled on the creeper's root. The gopis are not as pleased when they directly mix with Krishna as when they serve to unite Srimati Radharani with Krishna. Their transcendental pleasure lies in uniting them. Sakya Shri Radhikaya Braja Kumuda Vidor Ladini Nama Shakti Saram Sha Prema Vajya Kishalaya Dala Pushpadi Tuya Swatuya Shiktayam Krishna Lilamrita Rasa Nichayar Ulasantya Mamusham Chatolasa Swashekach Chata Gunam Adikam Santi Yatanna Chitram. All the gopis, the personal friends of Srimati Radharani, are equal to her. Krishna is pleasing to the inhabitants of Brajabhumi just as the moon is pleasing to the lotus flower. His pleasure-giving potency is known as Aladini, of which the active principle is Srimati Radharani. She is compared to a creeper with newly grown flowers and leaves. When the nectar of Krishna's pastimes is sprinkled on Srimati Radharani, our friends, the gopis, immediately appreciate the pleasure 100 times more than if they were sprinkled themselves. Actually, this is not at all wonderful. This verse is from the Govinda Lilamrita. The Govinda Lilamrita is composed by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Jajapi Sakir Krishna Sangame Nahiman Tatapi Radhika Jatne Karana Sangam. Although the gopis, Srimati Radharani's friends, do not desire to enjoy themselves directly with Krishna, Srimati Radharani makes a great endeavor to induce Krishna to enjoy himself with the gopis. Nanachale Krishna Preri Sangama Karai Atma Krishna Sangha Hoite Kote Sukha Pai. Presenting various pleas for the gopis, Srimati Radharani sometimes sends the gopis to Krishna just to enable them to associate with him directly. At such times, she enjoys a happiness 10 million times greater than that enjoyed through direct association. Anjonye Vishuddha Preme Kore Rasa Pushta Tasavar Premadeki Krishna Hoy Tushta. The transcendental marrow is nourished by that mutual behavior and transcendental love of Godhead. When Lord Krishna sees how the gopis have developed pure love for him, he becomes very satisfied. So sometimes we hear how naturally Srimati Radharani shows her jealous anger. But this is directed towards her competitors. We're talking here about those persons who are of Radharani's confidence, who are in her camp. She sends them to Krishna, to meet with Krishna, because she likes to see them engaged in this way. Those are her trusted confidants. Sahaja gopira prema nahi prakrita kamakrita samyetara kahe kamanam. It is to be noted that the natural characteristic of the gopis is to love the Supreme Lord. Their lusty desire is not to be compared to material lust. Nonetheless, because their desire sometimes appears to resemble material lust, their transcendental love for Krishna is sometimes described as lust. So in this sense, we know that, as we talked yesterday, words have two meanings. One meaning on the mundane platform and one meaning on the spiritual platform. Like the word lalasa. It can be material greed, but it can also mean yearning, unless one has some intense desire for Krishna consciousness. That is, one has to have that intense desire. That is a qualification for getting it, for getting Krishna consciousness. So we can talk about calm in this world, but here, sometimes the gopis' affairs with Krishna are called by that word, calm, but it is not to be equated with the calm of the mundane world, because calm of the mundane world is to satisfy one's own senses. But the affairs of the gopis with Krishna is to satisfy Krishna. That's their only desire. Sahaja gopir prema nahi prakritakam kamakrita samyetara kahe kamanam. Premaiva gopar ramanam kama iti agamat pratam iti udavadayo yetam vanshanti bhagavat priya. Although the dealings of the gopis with Krishna are on the platform of pure love of Godhead, such dealings are sometimes considered to be lusty. But because they are completely spiritual, Uddhava and all the other dearmost devotees of the Lord desire to participate in them. So when Uddhava was sent by Krishna to Vrindavan, he worshipped the gopis. Now Uddhava would not be interested, he isn't a stalwart devotee, he would not be interested in normal dealings between boy and girl on that platform, but he actually desired or prayed to become a creeper in Vrindavan so that he could get the foot dust of the gopis upon his head. Nirjendriya sukha hetu kamera tatparya Krishna sukha tatparya gopi bhavavarya. Lusty desires are experienced when one is concerned with his own personal sense gratification. And the mood of the gopis is not like that. Their only desire is to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Dijendriya sukha bansha nahi gopikar Krishna sukha dite kore sangama bihar. Among the gopis there is not a pinch of desire for sense gratification. Their only desire is to give pleasure to Krishna. And this is why they mingle with him and enjoy with him. Yatte sujata charanam buruham staneshu bitas shanai priya dadimahi karkasheshu tena tavim atasi tadvyatate nakim srit kurpadi bir brahmati dir bavad ayushamna. All the gopis said, "Dear Krishna, we carefully hold your delicate lotus feet upon our hard breast. When you walk in the forest, your soft lotus feet are pricked by small bits of stone. We fear that this is paining you. Since you are our life and soul, our minds are very much disturbed when your lotus feet are pained." Say gopi bhavamrita jara loba hoy veda dharma loka tyaji say Krishna bhajai. One who is attracted by that ecstatic love of the gopis does not care about popular opinion or the regulative principles of Vedic life. Rather, such a person surrenders unto Krishna and renders service unto him. Raganuga marge tare bhaje jai jan, se jan pai braje brajendra nandan. If one worships the Lord on the path of spontaneous love and goes to Vrindavan, one receives the shelter of Brajendra Nandana, the son of Nanda Maharaj. Braja loker kon baba loya jai bhaje, baba jogya deho paya, Krishna pai braje. In his liberated stage, the devotee is attracted by one of the five humors or rasas in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As one continues to serve the Lord in that mood, one attains a spiritual body to serve Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Tahate Drishtanta Upanishad Shrutigan Ragamarge Bhaje Paila Brajendra Nandan. Those saintly persons who represent the Upanishads are vivid examples of this. By worshiping the Lord on the path of spontaneous love, they attain the lotus feet of Brajendra Nandana, the son of Nanda Maharaj. So they were engaged in this spontaneous love, Rag Marg, that is the sentiment, or that is happening in Vrindavan. So the Shrutigan, the personified Vedas, they admitted by just as being, the Vedas cannot understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna, then they had to follow in the footsteps of the gopis and pray for their mercy in order to be able to enter into Radha and Krishna Lila. Nibrita Marun Manoksha Drida Yogya Yujo Ridiyan Munaya Upasate Tad Arayopi Yayu Smaranat Striya Uru Gendra Boga Bhuja Danda Vishakta Dio Vayumapi Te Sama Samadrishongri Saroja Shuddha. Great sages conquer the mind and senses by practicing the mystic yoga system and controlling the breath. Thus, engaging in mystic yoga, they see the supersoul within their hearts and ultimately enter into impersonal Brahman. But even the enemies of the Supreme Lord attain that position simply by thinking of the Lord. However, the damsels of Braja, the gopis, being attracted by the beauty of Krishna, simply wanted to embrace him and his arms, which are like serpents. Thus, the gopis ultimately tasted the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, we Upanishads can also taste the nectar of his lotus feet by following in the footsteps of the gopis. Samadrisha shabde kohe sebhave anugati, sama shabde kohe shrutir gopideho prapti. The word samadrisha, mentioned in the fourth line of the previous verse, means following in the footsteps, following in the mood of the gopis. The word samadrisha, mentioned in the fourth line of the previous verse, means following the mood of the gopis. The word sama means the shrutis attaining a body like those of the gopis. By that worship, they could be born in Vrindavan and attain a body like those of the gopis. Saki Padma Shudaya Kohe Krishna Sangananda Bidi Marge Na Pai Paye Braje Krishna Chandra. The word Angri Padma Shuddha means associating intimately with Krishna. One can attain such perfection only by spontaneous love of God. One cannot obtain Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan simply by serving the Lord according to the regulative principles, according to Vidyanagar. Nayam Sukopo Bhagavan Dehinam Gopika Sutta Kyaninam Shatma Bhutanam Yata Bhakti Matam Miha. Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to those devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. Ateva Gopi Baba Kori Angikar Ratri Dina Chinte Radha Krishnara Bihar. Therefore, one should accept the mood of the gopis in their service. In such a mood, one should always think of the pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna. Siddhadehe Chinti Kori Tahan Tahai Sevan Sakhi Babe Pai Radha Krishnara Charan. After thinking of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes for a long time, and after getting completely free from material contamination, one is transferred to the spiritual world. There, the devotee attains an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna as one of the gopis. Gopi anu gatya bina aishvarya gane Bajileha nahipai brajendra nandane. Unless one follows in the footsteps of the gopis, one cannot attain the service of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. If one is overcome by knowledge of the Lord's opulence, one cannot attain the Lord's lotus feet, even though one is engaged in devotional service. You can't obtain the Lord by Aishvarya Gyan. This is a predominant mood of awe, reverence, majesty, respect. So, similar, that will be in the worship of Lakshmi Narayan, but that is not the mood of Vrindavan. There, the worship, as said, is following the footsteps of the gopis. Tahate drishtanta lakmi korila bhajan tatapina paila braji brajendra nandan. The unspoken example in this connection is the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, who worshiped Lord Krishna in order to attain his pastimes in Vrindavan. But due to her opulent lifestyle, she could not attain the service of Krishna in Vrindavan. Nayam Shriyonga Unitanta Rate Prasada Svaryoshitam Nalina Ganda Rucham Kutonya Rasotsavesha Bujadanda Rihita Kanta Labda Shishamya Udagad Raja Sundarinam. When Sri Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Rasa-lila, the gopis were embraced around the neck by the Lord's arms. This favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or the other consorts of the spiritual world, nor was such a thing ever imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and the fragrance of lotus flowers. And what to speak of worldly women who may be very, very beautiful according to material estimation. Etashuni prabhutari koilalingan nuijane galagali korana krandan. After hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Ramananda Raya, and both of them embracing shoulder to shoulder began to cry. Emata prima beshe ratri gonaila pratakale nija nija karye duhegela. The entire night was passed in this way, in ecstatic love of Godhead. In the morning they both departed to tend to their respective duties. Vidai Samaye Prabhu Chanarne Dariya Ramananda Raya Kohe Vinati Koriya. Before departing from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Raya fell to the ground and caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet. He then spoke submissively as follows. Mora kripa korite tomar ihanagaman dina dasha rahe shoda mora dushtaman. Sri Ramananda Raya said, "You have come here just to show me your causeless mercy. Therefore stay here for at least 10 days and purify my polluted mind." Toma bina anya nahi jiva udarite, toma bina anya nahi Krishna premadite. But for you there is no one who can deliver all the living entities. For you alone can deliver love of Krishna. Prabhu kohe ailama, Prabhu kohe ailana Shune Tomargun Krishna Kata Shune Shuddha Koraite Man. The Lord replied, having heard about your good qualities, I've come here. I've come to hear about Krishna from you and thus purify my mind. Jaiche Shunilun, Taiche Dekilun, Tomara Mahima, Radha Krishna, Prima Rasa, Yanera Tumisima. Now that I have actually seen your glories, what I heard about you is confirmed. As far as the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in a loving mood are concerned, you are the limit of knowledge. Dashadin Kakata Yavadami Jiba Tavatomar Sangha Charite Nariba. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued to say nothing of 10 days. As long as I live, I shall find it impossible to give up your company. Nilachale tumi amit takiba eksange suke gonaiba kala Krishna katarange. You and I shall remain together at Jagannath Puri. We shall pass our time together in joy, talking about Krishna and his pastimes. Eta boli duhe nija karya gela sanja kale rai puna asya milila. In this way, they both departed to perform their respective duties. Then, in the evening, Ramananda Roy returned to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'm going to pause here. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Madana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanata Bhatta Raguna Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jao Ete Vignana Shabishta Puran H.I. Gosai Jarmui Taradas Tasabar Bhadarenu Mora Panchagras Kader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame Janame More Abhilas H.I. Gosai Jabe Branje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya-lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Manjayaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narata Moda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakakshira Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsi Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishwavaranya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Acharya Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Sripad Bhakti Bandhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.